Hello, excuse me. Hello, my name is Keshwani. That's K-E-S-H-W-A-N-I, Keshwani. I am here because I want to improve my English. Do you want to improve your English? Well, if you do, I'm hoping that you will help me, and I'll help you. Working together, you and I will help each other improve our English. We are going to learn few words every day. Today is day number 5. If you're looking for any particular words for any particular day, this is a tag that you want to use. Just type in Keshwani prep -vocab for vocabulary -day and then a number, day 5. Let's start today. The very first word that I want to start with is actually not that difficult word. Most people would know it, but here it is anyway. The word is meticulous. It's meticulous. What does it mean to be meticulous? It means to be meticulous means to pay excessive attention to details. If you're paying excessive attention to minute details, you're being meticulous. That's all it is. You can also say that to be very particular. The word particular has another meaning which is being used here. We're not talking about the first meaning of the word particular as in that particular person or that particular book. Here, particular means to be meticulous, to be picky, to be paying attention, excessive attention to minute detail. If you're doing that, you're being very particular, you're being very picky. To be picky. Not quite so, because to be meticulous is a virtue. It is a good quality. I'll put them on the side here. Any word that crop up in the lecture that are not there, we're going to cover them in the future. It is a virtue, and I'm not sure about the spelling here. I'm very paranoid. I'm not a very good speller. Let me double check. Is that how one spells virtue, even though it's a very simple word? Oh, I am not 100% sure. And a lot of the time I'm going to end up making a fool of myself in terms of spelling and also sometimes the words, but that's how it is. There you go. To be meticulous is a virtue. It's a good quality. Virtue means a good quality. But if you do too much of it to the point where it begins to cross that fine line, it becomes a vice. A bad quality. And when that happens, the word that we use is fastidious. And although some people will disagree with me on that, but that's what it is, fastidious. Fastidious. Look into this thing as close as you can to this pronunciation key with the different vowels, and try to get in the habit of putting the phonetics of the word so that you know how to pronounce them properly. Don't just learn the word. At the same time, make sure that you do your utmost, your level best, to pronounce the word the way it's supposed to be pronounced, the way it's meant to be pronounced. Otherwise, people will have difficulty understanding you. A fastidious person is a very difficult person to please. Difficult to please. Because they're very picky, they're very particular, everything has to be just so, and if anything is out of place just a little bit, they're not happy with it. Everything has to be just perfect. And if that happens, and that's the case, then that person is being fastidious. Meticulous and fastidious. Fastidious begins to get a nuance of negativity, because it takes on a negative nuance. And again, if you do not know the word nuance, that's the very first word that I covered, very first word on the very first day. Go to the day 1 video and watch it and learn the word nuance. Okay? Let's go on then. The next word that I want to cover is, that's it. We're done with these 2 words. The next word I want to cover is aboveboard. Aboveboard. I find that word interesting, so I want to talk about it. What does it mean to be aboveboard? Well, it has 2 meanings. Sometimes some words, not all the words, but sometimes some words have 2 meanings. They have their literal meaning. They mean something literally. And then over the years, over the time, they acquire some metaphorical meaning. This marker is just as bad as the other one. Something happens to their tip, and even though it's a perfectly good marker, once the tip is ruined, the whole thing is shot to hell. Anyway, so some words have literal meaning, literally they mean one thing, and they have acquired some metaphorical meaning over time. Same exact thing applies to the word aboveboard. What does it mean, aboveboard? Let's first talk about literal meaning. The word board that you see here is from the Old English, which means table. Board in Old English means table. So aboveboard means above the table, which is where you will hear the expressions such as room and board at colleges. Room and board simply means they give you a room and they give you a desk. They give you a table to work at. What else do you need? You're a student. Just do your thing. Room and board, which is where we hear terms such as board of directors. Board of director means it's a table around which the board members sit, which is where we also hear chairman of the board. Chairman of the board. And we don't want to annoy the people who are listening here with different anatomy, so we'll change that to chairperson. How about that? Even though it sounds very correct in the modern days, but it still has chairman of the board. Chairman of the board, chairperson of the board means the person who is the head of the table. That's what it means literally. Board means table. What does the word aboveboard metaphorically mean? Well, metaphorically it means, first I'm going to tell you what the word actually means, and then I'm going to tell you the etymology of the word. We'll cover that word in the future. Metaphorically, it means to be open, to be honest, to be straightforward. To do something without shenanigans. We'll learn the word shenanigan in a second. So, the question now is, what does this word, which literally means to be above the table, has to do with being honest? How, in other words, how is it that this word, which means to be above the table, has acquired a metaphorical meaning of being open and honest? Well, that has to do with its etymology. Etymology means history of the word. History of the word. And the etymology of the word is that it is a term, above board is a term from the language. What's the word I'm looking for here? For the language, the terminology, the jargon of the gamblers. A bunch of gamblers are sitting around the table and they're playing cards. How would you like your opponents to shuffle the cards? Would you like the person to shuffle the card above the table or to shuffle the card below the table? Would you like that person to hold their cards above the table or would you like that person to hold their cards under the table? Of course you would like to hold their cards above the table. Of course you would like the cards being shuffled above the table. Therefore, above board has come to mean to be open, to be honest, to be straightforward, to not engage in any shenanigans. Let's learn the word shenanigans now. That's what it is, above board. Since I have no room here, I'm going to erase everything to talk about this word shenanigans. I am not very happy with any of the black markers that I have. Alright. So I need the room, let's erase it. Again, room and board, board of directors, chairman of the board, they all come from the word table. Old English, in Old English, board means table. Above board, above the table. And as I already told you the story of it, etymology of the word, it's a gambler's term. They prefer their opponents, all the people who are playing with them at the table, to do everything above board, to do everything above the table so people can see it in the full view of everybody. Let's learn this word, shenanigans. What does it mean? Show, man, good. Shenanigan. It's a noun and it's an informal word. It's not a formal word. In other words, it's not something that you will hear in the formal writing or formal reading or a formal speech, unless the person is trying to be funny and trying to employing this word for the effect. Most of the times it is used as an informal word, and most of the time it is used in plural. Most of the time it is used in the plural. Shenanigans, they would say. What does it mean? Well, it means trickery. To be tricky, to engage in tricks. You're not being open, you're not being honest, you're not being straightforward. It means to engage in treachery. It means to engage in deceitful exercises, deceitful work, whatever it is that you're doing. It means to engage in dishonesty. Did I spell it correctly? It doesn't look right. Dishonesty. Dishonesty. To engage in dishonesty. It also means if you're talking to a small child, if you're talking to kids, and you tell them not to engage in shenanigans, in that context, it does not mean you're not telling them not to be tricky or not to be treacherous, not to be deceitful, not to be dishonest. That's not what you're telling them. If you're talking to a child and telling the child to start the shenanigans, then in that case, it also means to engage in pranks, to engage in tricks, to engage in mischief. But here, the motivation, the motive, is not a malice. Person is not doing out of malice. Person is doing because they are having fun with it. That's all it is. In which case, it qualifies as a prank rather than dishonesty or treachery or trickery. Do you understand? And the word was shenanigans. Let's learn one more word. The word that I want to talk about now is this word. In most dictionaries, when something is informal, you will see the word and it will tell you it's noun, and in the parentheses it will say COLL. It will not say informal, it will say COLL. What is it that they are abbreviating? Well, let's learn it. They are abbreviating a word called colloquial. Colloquial. Let's learn this word, colloquial. I need to erase it, so there we go. Colloquial is abbreviated as COLL. Let's learn it. When you're learning how to pronounce the word, say slowly each what's the word I'm looking for here? Each syllable separately and slowly, distinctly, and then try to put it together. So that's what I do. Colloquial, until you pick up speed later on. Colloquial. It's an adjective. It means exactly what we said before. It's colloquial means informal speech. Informal speech. In other words, it means relating to conversation. Relating to conversation. While we're talking about colloquial and informal speech, a nice word comes to my mind right now. I'm going to put it on the list here. We'll cover them in the future. It's actually not a word. It's a phrase borrowed from French, which is carte blanche. Carte blanche. And since we learned this word etymology a little while ago, etymology means history of the word, story behind the word. Words have history, they have stories behind them, and if you know them, it makes it easier to remember them. In the future, one of these days, I'm going to cover, not this word, it's not a word as you can see, it's an expression because there are two words there. Carte blanche. Carte, as in piece of paper, and blanche is the French word for English. It's feminine apparently because masculine would have been blanc. Anyway, we're not here to learn French. Carte blanche, which simply means a white piece of paper. What does it mean? So that's what it means literally. Carte blanche literally means a white piece of paper. What does it mean metaphorically? Well, metaphorically it means to give somebody an absolute authority to do whatever it is that they want to do. In the colloquial way, in a colloquial way, you would say no strings attached. You can do whatever you want. There are no conditions. There are no requirements. There are no restrictions. You can do as you please. You have carte blanche. Do you understand? We'll learn this in the future. There was slight digression. I don't know why I went there, but anyway, the word is colloquial, which means having to do with informal speech relating to conversation. So if something is colloquial, then that is something that person employs in their speech, maybe in their conversation, but you're not likely to see it in a formal writing, you're not likely to hear it in a formal speech. The word that we were talking about before was shenanigan. Shenanigan is a colloquial term, it's not a formal term. Let's go on then. A little while ago we learned the word aboveboard, which literally means to be above the table, and metaphorically it means to be open, to be honest, to be straightforward, to not engage in any kind of deceitful practice. Let's learn a couple of antonyms of it. Let's learn a couple of antonyms of aboveboard. Antonym, which is abbreviated as ANT. Antonym. That's how it's pronounced, antonym. Let's learn a couple of antonyms of aboveboard. Antonyms of aboveboard. And since aboveboard means to be honest, antonym would have to mean somebody who is dishonest. Here's the word. I find this interesting word. The word that I want to talk about is quack. Again, quack also has two meanings, a literal meaning, well not literal meaning, but more restrictive meaning from back in the old days, and a broader meaning. Back in the old days, a quack was described as somebody who was practicing medicine, pretending to be a doctor, but in reality that person had no qualification, had no business practicing medicine. They had no qualification, they had no training, they had no education in medicine, but they would go to a certain town in certain village and announce that they are doctors, they are a medicine person, and they would start practicing medicine. That person was described as a quack. That's the more narrow definition of it. Broadly speaking, a quack is somebody who's a fraud. He's a fraud. It's somebody who claims to possess a certain knowledge or skill or qualification, but in reality he doesn't have any that qualification or that skill or that knowledge. A lot of time in some countries where people buy these certificates, you can literally buy a certificate, you bribe somebody at a medical college and they will give you this certificate which says that you are an MD, but in reality you probably don't even know how to hold a syringe. So anyway, quack is the word, which means a fraud. Let's learn one more word. The word is nope, it's not pronounced ch, even though it begins with ch. It's not pronounced ch, it's pronounced sh. It's pronounced. This word is pronounced sh, sha, shar, le, ton. Charlatan. A charlatan is a quack, is a fraud. That's what it is. It's the same as this word right here. We're talking about antonyms of aboveboard. So these are all antonyms, and if all of these words are antonym of aboveboard, then all of these words must be synonym of each other's. A quack, a charlatan. Let's learn one more word. An imposter. An imposter is someone who claims to be somebody that he is not. An imposter is someone who claims to be somebody that he is that he's not, like our quack. A quack is a more literal meaning, more narrow meaning of the word. Back in the old West was a person who claims to be a doctor, but in reality he's not a doctor. He's an imposter. He's pretending to be a doctor, but he's not a doctor. You can also use the word in a more broad meaning. You can pretend to be a policeman, but you're not a real policeman. The person has the police uniform on and they have this fake ID. He's an imposter. He's not a real policeman. That's it. That was it. That was it for today. We're done. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned some words out of it. Listen, if you wish to get hold of me for personal private tutoring, I tutor over the internet via Skype. I also tutor face-to-face, obviously, in person, and over the telephone and so forth. If you're preparing for any of these exams, GRE, prepforgre.com, GMAT, prepforgmat.com, prep for SAT, prep for TOEFL.com, you can go to any of these URLs and send me an email, and we'll go from there. Okay? Or you can go to keshwaniprep.com and send me an email from there, and I'll be more than happy to help you with whichever exam that you're preparing for, the GRE, the GMAT, or the SAT, or the TOEFL. Alright? Thanks.